You gave me a good turn.
Okay.
So, and my wife has a, or had.
There you go. You got it. Yay. Oh, sorry. This is recording.
And it was going down the hill fast. Got a Kia.
Sandy, can you hear?
Yes, I can. Thank you very much.
Paul Wilcox, I just admitted him.
It's a small four-door Kia. He's got
And Paul and
did really
Danny,
got a
when
good
they meet
trade-in
Danny.
on the.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
And John,
Had this
admitting
this
John.
Volkswagen that was probably worth $2,500
We're cooking now.
to some kid that wanted to fix it up.
All right.
What's that?
Oh yeah, it came out looking good on that. It's a little low for me. I like my Kia Soul. They sit up a little.
So we are recording. Good job.
So
Thanks for hanging in
can
there.
everybody
They got
hear
going.
Tanny?
I believe so. Sandy, can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can. Thank you very much.
All done, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, good.
John can hear you. Okay.
Great. All right, we apologize for the delay this evening, but I think we have everything up and going now. And at this time, I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Troutdale Planning Commission for Wednesday, March 22nd, 2023. If we could have roll call, please.
Commissioner Waidoya,
Will not be here this evening.
Commissioner Leamy,
Here.
Vice Chair Perkett,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilcox,
Yes, I was about ready to give up on you.
Says he's there.
Yeah,
he's here.
okay.
Commissioner Wilcox is here. Commissioner Allen
Here.
and Chair Stephenson.
Here. Okay, at this time, I'd like to ask everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and Commissioner Prickett will be leading us this evening.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America,
and
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay.
Hey Tanny, can you just make sure that I haven't heard anybody speak yet.
I know.
Okay.
Chrisanne, can you make sure that they can, we can hear them?
John Phoenix, can we hear you?
Yeah, test. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. So they can hear us, but we can't hear them. Turn that
So,
on.
I'm muted.
You have to turn your sounds off. Look at you. There you go.
John, can you hear us? Yeah, but can you
Can
say
you
something?
say something?
Yeah, can you still hear me?
No, hear him.
Okay.
Can't hear me?
We need to open that audio for them if we can. If they're muted.
Okay.
All right.
Let's see here.
Is there anyone wishing to speak to the planning commission this evening on a non-agenda item? Okay, then we know why you're here. Okay, I'm not seeing any. I'll go ahead and get started.
Well, I still don't know. I still don't know if we can hear them.
No, see the little, I can see the little red microphones are blocked.
Where's that?
The-
Oh, those guys?
Yeah, they.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Paul, can you hear us okay?
It's not real clear, but I hear you okay.
Yeah, they're muted.
I hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear everyone pretty well too.
Okay, so they're unmuted?
No, they're muted.
They're all muted now.
Just press on the little red mic.
Yeah, I know, that's what I'm trying to do, ask to unmute, yes. There's only an option, and there's more. Ask to start the video, I'm hosting, but if I click on the red, nothing happens.
Oh.
Mute all, invite more. Mute all,
Mute all.
ask all to unmute.
John, can you hear it? Can you?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay.
I can hear you
The
guys
only
as
one
well.
who's able to talk is Oh, Travis is the one who's not needed, so
Yeah, we cannot hear them at all.
Zach asked to unmute.
It's Travis.
Zach, can you speak?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
You cannot hear him.
Nothing.
Eight participants. Yes.
Yeah, this is Travis.
So you turned off.
I don't know if Tim knows how to do this. It's the big main things over there. That's the one that's controlling
What did we
everything.
turn off here that was making the swirly noise?
My audio here.
John, can you hear us?
We can hear you.
Okay. You're getting closer. They can hear us now.
Yeah, so can everybody try to mute that's on virtually?
It's not them, it's in here. Turn your microphone off, maybe.
Oh, this guy here?
No, the one on your computer.
It is, oh, well, it's down, let's see. Then we can't, that's the problem, we can't hear.
We're only hearing it through your computer.
Can you hear me?
We can hear each other, but I don't know if they can hear us.
I can hear you, is that Sandy?
Yeah, that's Sandy.
Okay, we can hear you.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. We're not hearing it on the system.
In the system, that's the system.
Yeah, we're hearing on the local computer, not the system.
So, let's see. Well, should we try to push through the best we can?
No.
No? Stop
Can't.
recording. Yeah. So by all accounts, this is working, this is functional.
Hey, Tim, did you try turning the microphone off and the speaker up?
What's going on right here?
On hers.
Yep, we hear that feedback too.
Yeah, I don't know why it's not.
So on your main system, what do you have chosen as your speaker?
The main, oh, it should be, oh, here's, this is supposed to be, this is supposed to be on. So when we reboot, okay, here we go. You got the same measure, guys. Please forgive me. All mics mute. Computer.
Okay, now turn yours off.
Turn your sound.
John?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes. Okay.
All right.
Hi, John.
Hey, everyone.
All right. Okay. I think we've got this now. And where we left off was public comment on non-agenda items, and I'm seeing none. So we'll move into the continuance of the hearing for case file 71-02, and that would be the City of Troutdale Parks Master Plan. And we'll run through hearing procedure again. And the matter tonight is case file 7102, the City of Troutdale Parks Master Plan. And before we begin the public hearing, I'd like to explain a little bit about the Planning Commission and the procedure we'll be following for the public hearing. Planning Commission is an appointed 7-member volunteer body of Troutdale citizens. Members of the Planning Commission are Troutdale residents who've been appointed by the City Council. They serve 4-year terms. They're strictly volunteers and receive no pay for their services. The Planning Commission serves as a citizen committee for the review of land use applications and various land use related matters within the city. Items which the Planning Commission consider include uses of land, subdivisions, major variances, land use policy plans, and development regulations. For some land use applications, the Planning Commission makes a final decision. For other applications, they are simply making a recommendation to the city council, who renders the final decision. Hearings are held in accordance with procedures contained in the Troutdale Development Code and according to Oregon law. Hearing proceeds as follows. City staff presents their report, which includes applicable criteria and standards in the matter under consideration in the land use application. All testimony should be directed towards these criteria. If you believe that other criteria in the Comprehensive Plan Development Code or other city land use regulations apply, you must identify these criteria and explain why they apply to the decision. Planning Commission accepts public testimony relating to the application. We will accept public testimony this evening. All issues raised by a participant during the public hearing must be sufficiently clear and specific to allow the Planning Commission and other parties an opportunity to respond to those issues. Failure to raise an issue during this public hearing may invalidate a future appeal based on that issue. Prior to closing the public hearing this evening, any participant may request an opportunity to present additional evidence or testimony regarding the application. The Planning Commission must grant the request either by continuing the public hearing to a future date or by leaving the record open for at least 7 days to admit only that specific additional written evidence or testimony. If the record is left open for the additional written evidence or testimony, any participant may file a written request for an opportunity to respond to new evidence submitted during the period that the record was left open. If such a request is filed, the Planning Commission shall reopen the record to allow any person to raise new issues which relate to the new evidence, testimony, or criteria for decision-making. Now, as a final note, these proceedings are recorded, so when you come up, we ask that you state your name and speak into the microphone. And if you plan on testifying this evening, please fill out one of the cards on the table and give it to Ms. Washington so that we've got a record that you were here this evening. Now, as I mentioned, this application is a type 4 hearing. So the Planning Commission will be making a recommendation to the City Council, who makes the final decision on this application. And any questions or comments for the open public hearing back up? Okay, this time we'll open the public hearing back up for case file 71-02, City of Troutdale Parks Master Plan. This is the one that we were almost through, and then we had a little Zoom issue. So we'll see if we can't get through it today. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. You covered the purpose of why we're here tonight. So, really, this is, and you covered the other points. This is a follow-up from March 8th, and so we're here to continue that conversation. And spoke to our consultant and colleague today, John Phoenix. John and I went through a lot of the elements in the plan, and to our understanding, we felt that things were pretty close. But John thought it might be a good idea, or we thought it would be a good idea to give a summary of kind of the larger elements that we covered. We're not going to go line by line. We just want to cover it at a high level, kind of by chapters. So we thought we would do that and then turn it back to you for continuing the conversation.
That'd be great.
Okay, so John Phoenix, please.
All right. Thank you, David. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes, okay, excellent. John Phoenix with MIG. I'm the project manager with this project, working with City of Troutdale. So thank you again for having me tonight. Excited to talk more about this plan. I know we spent a fair bit of time going into some details and some refinements. So I'm here tonight to respond to any questions and help clarify anything that Planning Commission has. So as a recap, at the last meeting in March, early March, I provided an overview presentation, talked more about community involvement, how the plan was put together, and then highlighted some of the key goals, recommendations, and projects. And so then after that, we had some public comment, some concerns, questions, and then quite a bit of detailed comments from Planning Commission members. So what I thought, as David mentioned, I can just highlight what we covered, and hopefully that'll help figure out where we left off and where to start tonight. So from my recollection, we covered a fair bit of the plan document. There's a series of appendices that go with the document, providing a lot of technical information, technical detail that doesn't necessarily belong in the body of the plan, but it's there when you need it. But we did talk quite a bit about really all the chapters I think we touched on. So chapter 1, the introduction, providing the context for the plan, community background, overview of the park and recreation system. There were a couple of refinements in that chapter. There was one around clarifying the capital project budget for the city and a couple of other miscellaneous refinements. Chapter 2, vision, goals, and objectives. This is obviously an important one. This gets translated into the city's comprehensive plan update for goal 8. And so if you're looking at the two amendments to the comprehensive plan and chapter 2, they're essentially the same, the goals and objectives. So there was quite a bit of discussion on the draft goals and objectives, a number of clarifications, some wordsmithing, changing some of the language around how we're describing some of those objectives. A couple of specific objectives around parking, for example. There's an objective around paid parking in Glen Otto Park. So we cover things like that, making sure we're clarifying local versus non-local residents. An important one is involving Parks Advisory Committee in decision-making on future projects. So everything in this plan is a recommendation with some priorities, but it's still a plan. And so anything that would actually get implemented would still have to get budgeted, essentially be part of that annual budget for anything to get started. So we talked about clarifying an objective to involve the Parks Advisory Committee in any decision-making with prioritizing and implementing projects. So there were some others in that chapter as well. Chapter 4, recommendations. This chapter covers really system-wide recommendations, spanning from administration to maintenance to operations and so forth. So we talked about a couple of things. I think one, as right before I think we closed the meeting, was some concern around camping in Glen Otto Park. So we clarified the gist of that recommendation, the sense that that's just one potential site amenity that could take place. But with any recommendation, any project in this plan, it would take more planning, more community involvement, more involvement from the Parks Advisory Committee and so forth for any of that to take place. So we talked a little bit about that as well. And finally, just to recap, chapter 5, getting into the specific capital projects, prioritizing those projects, that 20-year project list, what needs to happen first, what did we hear from the community and the advisory committee about making sure it takes place sooner than later. So we talked about some of those. There was an observation around North Troutdale in the industrial part of the city, non-residential, about adding some kind of a public amenity in that area, potentially sundial wetlands. So having something for workers, even folks that are visiting here locally. So we've got that addition to the plan. And the last big thing I had on here was we spent a fair bit of time talking about the trail system proposed in that chapter 5, and appreciated Travis Holton's clarification on some of those projects, the fact that some are currently in the planning, design, construction phase. Some are visionary. They're in the city's transportation system plan, but there's no funding, there's no support to get those built. So we clarified some of those points as well. And I think the last one I had on here was there was a recommendation to add some specificity for trail projects in particular, to make sure we're considering and factoring in safety for trail use. So that was another addition related to trail projects. So a lot of clarifications, some refinements to the plan that I've got a lot of notes on. But that was my take on what we talked about at the last meeting. So we kind of went from chapter 1 to chapter 5 and bounced around a little bit. But I think we covered most of that, and I realized we were kind of preempted from finishing that conversation. But yeah, I think that's it for the overview. So I'm happy to turn it back over, and yeah, I'm here for any questions and clarifications.
Nothing
Also
else?
your report.
Okay, all right. At this time, then I would like to take public comment. Step right up.
Yeah, we do have a public comment on
Good evening, Chair Reynolds.
Thank you. I'm Shelley Reynolds. I am Troutdale, and I am the Parks Advisory Committee Chair. First of all, thank you all for your consideration of this plan. John, also thank you for your work on this plan, and don't roll your eyes at me over this next few little comments. So after the Parks Advisory Committee members attended the last Planning Commission, we went back to the Parks Advisory Committee last week, and a motion was made to recommend that after the Planning Commission has made their proposed revisions and suggestions, that the plan be brought back to the Parks Advisory Committee for another review, another consideration. I think there were a couple of projects in the Parks Master Plan that we wanted to discuss and consider further. And on that note, John, it would be really great if we could get a copy of the Parks Master Plan redlined with Planning Commission suggestions, and then when we are done making our suggestions, a red line back to the Planning Commission, because I believe it would have to come back here. And we certainly understand that you all have to make the recommendation to send it back to us, but I'm just saying that the Parks Advisory Committee has voted overwhelmingly that we would like to have it back for a final review and consideration. Okay.
We'd be happy to do that. Any other comments?
I don't think so, except thank you all for your hard work, and John for your overwhelming patience with us as we maneuver through this giant project.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Rizzo, did you have anything? No? Yeah. Short timer. All right. Okay, so he's right, we went 1 to 5. And I don't know if I have anything even in 2. Do you guys have any proposed changes to 2?
Chair Stephenson,
Yes, Commissioner Allen.
if I remember correctly, we had gone through it and then you were going through a list that you wanted to cover.
Right.
Did you have some more stuff from your list that you?
I always have more stuff.
Oh, okay. I'm always happy to hear it.
I have one question for you. You mentioned were you talking about adding a park in the URA, or not the URA, but in the TRIP area?
So what we're talking about with the URA is sometimes when you're at work, people have different personalities, right? Some people recharge when they get away and they get to, kind of enjoy nature and relax a bit. And the times that workers in the URA, not URA, but the TRIP area, the time that they have available for breaks and lunches is really quite limited. And so it'd be nice if they had an outside place that is an enjoyable place to be, watch the water, whatever, that they could decompress at in in that area. So not necessarily a full-blown park, but an area to unwind.
Like a bench or.
Yeah, like a bench
park
or
bench.
something
Park bench.
along the trail or overlooking the water. Or not sure where we could fit one in because the nature area is up there, right?
Yeah, that's sort of,
And can you put?
and
a
that's what I'm
bench in
trying
a
to
nature
figure out
area?
is how we help this.
I know that nature areas I visited in other cities had benches that you could actually sit and enjoy the nature.
We might not allow that.
Okay.
Because it's a flood area.
Well, then it's a swimming area then.
So what I'm thinking is, are you thinking of trying to add a park?
Very limited in scope, just benches, park benches.
Okay. So it'd be like if there was some, like, position where the port would sell some of the property they have, and it could be made into a small park.
Or it could even be the nature areas we already have. Or if it's not allowed, then just right next to it.
We can look into that. You know, we can look into, again, I'm not 100% familiar with all the lands that we have, but we can look into with our short-timer park superintendent here, if there's potential place to do that. Tim, do you think there is a place to do that?
We might, there's a nice area on the Amazon property that maybe Amazon would allow us to do a co-legal type of thing that's, you know, pretty centrally access to the trip property.
Right. My suggestion would be, though, Chair, is that we can add those types of things into the plan as an action item, but those types of things take a while to negotiate.
Yeah.
As you're well aware. So we can add that as an action item to negotiate with Amazon, to negotiate, to have a conversation with them and put a time limit on it that you all think is reasonable to see if they're willing to do something like that. So that was one thought. The other thought is it's not where Tim went, is to maybe check in on the port in the same way. I would suggest, and I don't know where you're going with this, but a master plan level type document, it shouldn't, in my mind, hold that up. It's just another thing that gets added to the
Not
action.
hold it up. I would just say we just put in there something about explore.
Oh, fantastic.
That is an option.
Yeah.
Do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
What we want to do is we want to make it possible so we don't go, oh, can't we go there? It's on the master plan. We want to at least look at that.
Perfect. All right. Let's go through most of this. So I think mine a little bit is navigating the 40-mile loop, but I think that's probably for others to figure out.
I have one comment. When
Yes.
we talked about paid for parking, and we talked about giving everyone a sticker in the water bill. Most apartments don't get a water bill. Each apartment renter does not get a specific water bill. So there'd have to be something tied in because they're also part of Troutdale. So we need to include renters as well that don't get a water bill. So if there's enough, you might look at, if they're going to do that, that might be another, just don't forget
Yeah.
the ones that are in apartments, because those, they're the vast majority of them do not. The water bill's included in their rent. Just an idea,
I'm glad you brought that up. You're right.
because that's a large population.
It's gotten larger.
My only other comments, and I think I brought this one up, is We have the 3.6 million in there for the riverfront, and we've already addressed that. So can we take that out?
Take it out.
Yeah. We have 3.6 in there, which was the whole cost of that park. And we've got a chunk of that funded. It's just make our capital sheet look better. That's all.
I don't see why we couldn't take it out. John, is there a reason why, given it's already funded, to leave it in from your perspective? John Venus?
He's thinking.
Yeah, he's thinking.
I was muted, sorry. Yeah, I think, I don't think there's a disadvantage to keep it in the document. I mean, I think it would be good to clarify if the project isn't complete. So there's always potential cost increases, changes in the project. So I think on the safe side, it would make sense to keep it in.
Chair, I can understand it from your perspective. I think I get your perspective of wanting the bookkeeping piece. But like a lot of other projects that I'm learning here, being able to cross-reference things as things happen could be useful. So it may not be necessarily an accounting type thing, but as there's elements of that plan and having that plan, that sketch, if you will, in the plan, I think it's useful as we'll see what happens with the Confluence site and how to be able to reference that and see that, I think could be useful. Maybe there's another way to treat it that serves your needs and also keeps it in the Parks Master Plan. Because the final piece too is, it might be a nice thing just to have in there to celebrate. I mean, it's one of the big ticket items for the community. I hear what you're saying, but
Yeah, I just wouldn't want us making decisions, collecting SDCs and things on 9 million when it's really 6 million. Does that make sense?
you're talking about what's happening on the
Yeah.
Confluence side.
Yeah.
The two are mutually exclusive, but maybe how would you suggest we reframe that?
Maybe we just make it the balance of what isn't grant funded or something.
Okay, I think that would work.
Yeah.
John, does that work for you? Is there a way to kind of notate it that way?
I think that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, there were several of these projects. Keep in mind when we started this, year and a half ago, that were still in the planning stages. So obviously, things have changed since then. But I think that could make sense. Kind of showing what's been funded and what's still not available yet.
Our esteemed Public Works Director is joining us.
Hey, there he is. Good evening, Mr. Holton.
Good evening, Chair Stephenson. I guess I just wanted to jump in here, and I'm sorry I can't find my raise hand button. So thanks for recognizing me. I just wanted to point out, I think it's perfectly appropriate to leave it the way it is in this plan. That is, this table is not going to be directly transplanted into a rate analysis.
Okay.
There's another step in that process, which would be to translate it into the capital improvement plan. And happens, the staff will be looking at, which projects would be proposed in the capital improvement plan, and then laying out what the funding sources would be. And we will certainly consider any existing funding sources that are already in place and factor those into the analysis. So that wouldn't then not roll into the SDC or any other funding rate that would already be discounted out of that. So I think it actually makes it kind of confusing if you say, well, we've already got, let's say $2 million in grant funding. So we're only going to show it as costing 1.6 million in this plan. Then you're going to have people looking at this plan and saying, well, this thing was only supposed to cost 1.6 million and it ended up costing 3.6, I think maintaining that consistency on the project cost is probably the way to go. And then the actual funding splits get sorted out in the capital improvement plan.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Chair Stephenson?
Yes, Commissioner.
If I remember correctly from our previous meeting, we were also talking about, and you alluded to this, interconnecting trails that used to be conduits of recreation. have become conduits of concern and liability, and so there's been some pushback on that. And it was mentioned by our managing engineer that the 40-mile loop connection is already getting into the construction phase. So I think the word was that train already left the station.
Isn't it next year? I think is that when that one's supposed to go down? Okay.
Well, again, yeah, that's currently planned to commence construction this summer. So
This
in
summer.
a few months. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm just bringing up that we are getting pushback on it. I don't know how we want to capture that.
Well, I guess we just need to, make the port aware of our concerns.
But I think the original, when we had the original open house, it was the connection through Troutdale that made the big argument.
Right,
That's
the
where it was
connection to
going
the
through.
spring
It
water
wasn't
trail.
normally on the port property. It was through Troutdale that they had that real big issue.
Yeah, from what I've been hearing is all interconnecting trails
Right.
have been of concern for the city of late due to the changes,
Right.
societal changes.
But I think when this one was approved was before all this. Because I don't even remember.
Right, right.
Parts of it were approved, but not all of it.
Things that were used to being encouraged are now being
Right,
discouraged.
being
So there's been
discouraged.
that shift over the years.
I'm not really sure how you address it, because you don't want to take and make a long-term decision for what could be a short-term problem.
Right.
But on the other hand, I was at that famous meeting, and I know how people felt, and their feelings are probably even a little stronger now than they were back then. And I just think that somehow before any more connections get done, the public needs to be engaged. And I think we need to make a recommendation to council that before they sign any future IGAs, they should be engaging the public and getting their opinion on it.
Right.
Yeah, well, we need to capture it somehow. Yeah.
That would be my thoughts anyhow. Because I think now, right, there's one that's slated to go up Buxton. Is that right? Or does it go up Sandy Avenue?
I believe the Parks Committee, John, correct me if I'm wrong, the Parks Committee nixed Sandy Avenue. But I think, to be honest, I think that it was to mix it all together, not just reroute it, but I could be wrong.
If I may, Chair Stephenson, that was proposed in the transportation system plan to convert that to a one-way road with a bike and pedestrian path in one of the existing lanes, and that was not adopted in the final transportation system plan.
Right. So I guess right now that's kind of on hold, right?
Well, I mean, formally speaking, it's right now it's not planned for. It's not going to happen because it was dropped from the original draft of the transportation system plan.
Okay.
This is John. I wanted to add with any of these projects, and like all of these projects, there's more that has to happen, before any of this is realized. I wanted to call out in chapter 5, there's a whole page devoted to this particular issue, which is having some specific discussion criteria for how the Parks Advisory Committee, how the Planning Commission or City Council can advance some of these projects. So I just wanted to call that out. There's a reason we have that in this plan, because this very thing happens pretty frequently. So that's why we have those built into this plan, is to have those very specific discussion questions that can be used to identify, if there's really a priority. If there are some challenges or some issues with this getting advanced to the next stage, then it doesn't happen. And so that's why we have that into this chapter about implementation.
Okay, great, thank you. So I think I mentioned this, we should also look at possibly, when we talk about funding, we should look at possibly private options if they're available. So I know we did that years ago
We've done some partnerships.
for maintenance.
Oh, that was new construction.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but looking at other opportunities. If those are possibilities. But I'd like to include those.
Okay.
Yeah, just to clarify, this is John again, in the appendices. So Appendix F, we have a whole list of funding options. Some of these are used by the city currently. Some of these are just ideas that are available. On Appendix page F3, we have a few different funding options for capital projects, and we specifically have in here private entities, so private grants, foundations, donations, private land trusts, and so on. So there's a whole list of different options. Again, this isn't holding the city to any one of these, just I think, Chair, as you're mentioning.
Yeah, so maybe like explore, the possibility of possibly using a private contractor. And then, you guys thinking about a park utility fee?
Sorry.
You guys looking at a park utility fee? No? Okay. You guys planning on addressing some of those? Okay, cool. All right. There's also something, somebody asked me, are we allowing dogs in all the parks? Yeah.
Slowly fades into back
In?
Yes.
Okay.
The mayor on his third week in office declared a proclamation that the city of Troutdale was a pet-friendly city. And as a former public works director, I was given direction to start installing way stations, which we have been doing. We're getting very, very good reviews back from the public, especially a lot of the more senior people that have small dogs. It always felt like a criminal because I can't walk my little small dog in a park. So we're taking baby steps.
So would you need a dog park?
We're in the process of getting ready to put a fence up at Columbia Park for a dog park there.
Right. I guess you see my question.
I think the difference that you're talking about, the dog park is going to be an off-leash park, which is not something that any of the other parks are allowing. Everything is going to be on-leash. Supposedly.
There you go.
Ideally.
Okay.
So all of our signs we put up are responsible pet owners, on leash only, and we're getting rave reviews from it.
From the signs?
No, from just the people who allow
Okay.
in the park.
Right. They felt like criminals, especially the older people, because they don't have to walk as far to a little local park. Especially in my neighborhood, it's just down the street, and people walk all the way around it, but they don't go through the park.
I live on the Wellen Park, it doesn't stop anybody. They all walk through the Wellen Park.
With their dogs?
Huh?
With their dogs, you mean? So we have a proclamation.
Yeah, we do.
Okay. Okay. I think there's a lot of good work and good ideas in the plan. I just
Well,
not sure how we're gonna completely get the funding wise.
right. I do like the idea of Wooddale Park. Nobody knows it's there because it's what's actually a homeowners association owned that piece of property, and it went that, when that association went belly up, Troutdale took it on. And there's just, they can't even get a lawnmower in there half the time. You have to walk one in because they only have these little pathways to go in.
Yeah.
But it suggested a community garden, which would be a great place for that.
Oh, okay.
I thought that was a great
Yeah.
use of that space because there is,
That does make
it's
sense.
underused as it is.
Yeah.
But the 2.5 FTE increase, right? Oh, there's a 2.5 FTE increase to cover maintenance. And proportionately, that's more per acre, I'm saying.
Yeah, that entails that include, Tim, tell me if I'm correct, but that assumes bringing on a new Sandy River Park Trail and other parks like it. So it's growing the system because there's a need. There's a need now, and with growing the park system, there's an additional need. John, maybe you could say that more eloquently than I said it, but I think that's right.
No, that's David, that's a good way to sum it up. But what we had heard throughout the process is there was already a need, so you can see it throughout the plan, how important maintenance is, taking care of, existing parks and facilities. So there was already that need. The 2.5 FTE equivalent is to accommodate, that existing shortfall and account for future parks as they come online. We also have in here a provision around maintenance costs and scaling that as new parks come online as well. So, for example, the plan recommends not just, funding for a new park or a new facility, park improvement, but there's also that additional maintenance cost that would have to take place as well, in addition to the what's currently required for maintenance of those sites.
Is that the 104, I think it is annually, something we're talking about for cost?
Does that bring us just a little bit over what our pre-2008 FTEs were?
That I don't know.
Yeah, table 5 on page 50 of the plan breaks down average annual maintenance cost, per the existing park system, and then there's a line item at the bottom for those additional parks, average annual maintenance for those parks as well.
So the new ones are 104. Is that the one you're talking about?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, the 104,000.
And so like if we're ramping up these FTEs, can we do this as these parks are constructed?
Yes.
Okay. Maybe we caveat, that'd be okay? Just bring people on as,
That's based upon purpose.
yeah.
I mean,
So
I have purpose right now for one additional FTE just to continue working and maintaining the 27 miles of trails we have in the city of Troutdale.
Yeah, I was thinking there are at least one short right at the moment.
In 2007, the city shed 3 employees due to the economic downturn.
That's what I was talking about, yeah.
So
And we've never had any increase in our FTE since then. I rely on seasonal staffing, which makes sense to me because they come in the spring, they work the summer, and then there's falls here, nothing's growing, we don't need that many hands. So that's kind of the advantage I've lived on working as I worked here. It would be a phased approach to bring new employees.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, would that be a stopgap, is to utilize more seasonal individuals?
Chair Stephenson?
Yes.
I believe we've always been using seasonal.
Correct.
But then the 2007, 2008 budget, we did reduce it a few FTEs that I'm not sure that we recovered, maybe added one more since then. No. Yeah. So I'm pretty sure that they're at least down one.
I mean, the city hasn't recovered, yeah.
Right. So they gave up FTEs during that period of time, 2000, 2008, from 2007, 2008, but never recovered.
Tim, does your draft budget include adding FTE separate from this ad with the Parks Master Plan?
No, it's kind of, it's tied together.
Okay.
It's like one, the park won't be built on the URA property, probably for another 2 or 3 years, so you can pencil that for that addition. And I'm not making that sarcastically, I mean, it's a lot of planning, there's gonna be a lot of work to get that place, getting the shovel party for you guys all out there with cold shovels. That's crack the dirt.
The esteemed Public Works Director has got his hand up.
Oh, he does, I'm sorry, Mr. Holden.
Thank you. I have a suggestion to offer here, and I was trying to remember and look and see if there's already something like this in the plan. So maybe John Finas can answer this for us. But it seems to me the most sensible way to approach that is to have a general guideline of FTEs per acres of park, and maybe even having that, there might even be a little bit different ratio depending on class of park. Because some parks are more intensive maintenance than others. And that way you don't have to worry about saying, well, I think we're going to need one when this specific park gets put online or that specific park gets put online. It becomes more analog as opposed to sort of stepwise. And you just sort of track your acres as you go along. And then when you hit these thresholds, say, oh, okay, it's about time we start looking to add another FTE because we're hitting that threshold to hit that ratio. And that would be a great guide for myself as a public works director, for a future park superintendent, and by extension, the budget committee and the council.
Yeah, I can respond to that one, Travis. That's a great clarification. So we have in the plan actually just essentially what you were saying. So we do have City of Troutdale maintenance FTEs comparison to comparable city park system providers, what they have. And so I think the thing that we could add to this, based on what you just said, is basically making that commensurate with any additional park maintenance. You would have to keep that baseline standard, similar to what we have in here for the funding aspect. So we have the comparisons, but I think adding that specificity around maintaining that baseline FTE is really important. So we can look at adding that change. The other thing I wanted to note is we also have, I think more related to what you said, Travis, where we have maintenance needs by park type, because obviously, every park's a little different in what they need for maintenance. So we do have that in the plan. And again, that's tied to the budget. And that assumes, labor, routine maintenance requirements, everything basically, but major capital projects. So we have the budget aspect in here. I think we should just clarify, what that means for staffing as well.
Yeah, it would be the most useful, I guess, when you talk about FTEs, would just to have that, recommended ratios, for maybe 2 or 3 or whatever, number of classes of parks you have, FTE per acre. And then, that's easy for us to track and sum on an ongoing basis to figure out where we're at relative to the overall recommended ratio,
Doesn't it, it's a great thought, doesn't it also then help possibly in pursuing grants and things of that nature, because we'll be looking for that formula of acres it weigh in that way or not? Seems like it would be a useful tool to have a standard.
Yeah.
In place for many reasons.
It could help us a lot.
Thank you, Travis.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I would put it as an advisory recommendation, right?
Okay.
And, but it would definitely glaringly point it out if we're slipping.
Okay. And of course, then my only other thing is, maybe a comment regarding future trail connections. And then on page 40, in that second paragraph down, the city should continue to pursue a land purchase with the RV park owners and adjacent property owners to create a trail along Beaver Creek between the RV park and the historic Columbia River Highway.
So Chair Stephenson, my feeling is, and I could be wrong here, is that inner city trails are encouraged. It's the interconnecting trails that people start to get nervous about.
So what do you take? Don't be nervous about this one.
I'm not sure that we should.
Okay. It just requires us to acquire some land to do it. And that might be a challenge.
Is it the same RV park?
Yeah.
Does anybody have some opinion on this? Anybody more familiar with that area?
Not familiar, but we've had issues with it.
Yeah, well, you have residences right along there, right?
Right.
They might have a
They
concern.
may have a concern because once you have a trail behind your resident, even if it's an RV park, they feel encroached upon because people feel like when they walk along it, that part of their yard is part of that trail, even if it's fenced off.
I have walked it myself.
Oh, Travis has his hand up.
Hello, Mr. Holton.
Hello again. I don't have an opinion to offer, but I can maybe offer some information that might help. I believe, and I don't know if David could weigh on this or not, David Berniker, but I believe that is essentially implementing one of the recommendations out of the town center plan. This would be a trail, if I'm understanding which one you guys are talking about. It's a trail that would basically run from downtown down along the creek and over to Glen Auto Park, more or less. And is that the trail we're talking about?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's trying to implement the town center plan recommendations, which is already an adopted plan. I know the city manager has been exploring with some of the property owners along there, some possibilities. But of course, the city doesn't own any of that land except for a little piece kind of near the bridge. And so it would take willing sellers, willing participants, willing donators, that would be even better. But willing folks to give over that land for that trail to happen. So, for what it's worth, it's not something that would, at this point in time, could be foisted on anyone. They would have to be a willing participant for it to be able to happen, because they'd have to give the city the land or sell it to us.
Right. It just, when it says continue to pursue, kind of makes me think that we want to negotiate with some. And I was thinking the town center plan, if I remember right, wasn't that an opportunity site? Whereas like if it got redeveloped, it would be incorporated into like a redevelopment plan. More than just.
Yeah, my memory may not be perfect because I wasn't directly plugged into a lot of the town center stuff, but if my memory serves, I think it's both. I think there was an opportunity site there, and I think concurrently there was a desire for a trail connecting from downtown to Glen Auto Park, more or less along the creek. Those two could be co-located, or you could, one, I think probably the more likely scenario would be the trail would be on the west side of the creek, and the opportunity sites on the east side where the RV park is. But I think that plan probably allows enough flexibility that, you know, if suddenly the RV park wanted to sell that to the city and the city wanted to buy it, that suddenly might become a very attractive route for that trail.
Absolutely, it would. I could totally see that. Okay, thank you. Commissioner Hendricks?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Stephenson. I just wanted to weigh in on this, just pointing out, I guess, that leaving them as kind of tentatively included in the plan is basically, again, for the purpose of having that option on the table later. So regardless of what happens in the future, this is just kind of, to me, I'm, you know, maybe if we change the wording of it to explore instead of pursue, if that's what you're uncomfortable about, you know, including things like that, I think is meant to essentially just kind of satisfy the requirement or the desire of the community to basically have more interconnecting trails in place. You know, access to the riverfront, I think, was a big one for a lot of the neighborhoods and things of that nature. So kind of falling into that vision, this would essentially just kind of give us some flexibility, you know, to explore that in the future, not necessarily, or, you know, even being conducive to the prioritization that we put into place via Parks Advisory Committee or what have you. But also being another line item on there as far as kind of creating what that system looks like. But that's just kind of my 2 cents. I think, you know, leaving things in, but maybe changing the wording is probably in the best interest.
No, and I appreciate that. And that's where I was going. I wasn't advocating for pulling these, maybe just instead of saying pursue, you know, maybe say explore.
Explore, consider.
You know,
basically, we don't want to direct them to do it. We want to direct them to think about it.
Right.
Sure.
Yes. Okay. Is that Zach?
He said sure.
Oh yeah, I just said sure. Thanks.
So maybe the city should explore. How's that?
Sounds better.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I'm happy. All right. Anything else? Yes.
Just a comment, Chair Stephenson.
Yes, sir.
I do like Travis Holton's suggestion of park by type on the FTE. That's an engineering mind at work. Appreciate it. Maybe not the FTE by park type.
Okay. Commissioner Andrews?
Yeah, thanks. I did have another comment, I guess, if we're kind of talking over the whole plan details here. I noticed there was some concern regarding, I guess, within the maintenance section, perhaps, when it talks about, you know, ensuring safety, designated function, et cetera. There was some concern over, I guess, the potential safety from a criminal standpoint on the trails, as far as a criminal element potentially with 40-mile loop, et cetera. I guess I wanted to know what maybe your thoughts were on just basically putting in a blurb about working with either law enforcement or, you know, crime prevention entities to ensure the safety of the trails as well, or you know, putting in something to essentially say that we also can collaborate to work on safety measures, addressing, you know, everyone's concern on that regard.
Yeah, and I'd like to have something in there because Travis Holton was very clear that, you know, the train has left the station on
Exactly.
on that 40-mile loop connection down there. And I just know that for the levee system, as it goes down, we're spending about $140,000 a year now for additional security and cleanup to get to the pump stations that are on the levees, right? And that's going down to about 185th, you know, interlocking where Blue Lake is, where the train stops now. And what I was told from our people at the drainage district is you could expect to spend about 30,000 out here once that connection's done, is their estimate. And I don't have anything it's guaranteed to be that amount, but these guys have been dealing with this for years. And they've probably got a pretty good idea of, you know, how much trash is created and, you know, how many issues and things of that nature. And I just think it's something we just need to be aware of and have a plan in place to take care of it from a budgetary standpoint.
Chair Staff said we should probably consult Gresham as well. Like I know that Gresham and the Gresham PD has some experience with trying to secure the trails as far as safety goes.
Yeah.
So it'd be nice to learn what lessons they've learned.
Well, and I'm talking specifically about the trail and the levee.
Right.
Because if they set up a camp on the levee, that's a problem.
Right.
There's additional engineering and work that has to be done to that levee to keep it functional.
I would agree.
So where in the plan would that be under?
I was thinking it was probably most appropriate within the maintenance section when it comes to, I mean, personally, just being able to, go ahead, Chair. It looks like you're.
Recommendation on our
Right.
part.
Right, I would agree.
Right.
It's just something I think we need to be aware of.
Just a quick comment, caveat on that is that while having connections with law enforcement to help with that stuff, they don't have the staff either. So we have to remember that when we're making these recommendations, that as much intention is there, the actual ability to fill that need is not.
And I can't say that it'd always be bad down there, but right now on that section, if you go along Marine Drive, it's pretty rough.
And law enforcement right now is just so short-staffed that providing extra security for stuff like that is going to be real hard.
And like that makes sense because that's how it is currently. But I guess what I'm saying again, I'm just trying to think ahead. I mean, being a plan that spans decades, just thinking it might be wise to essentially put a provision in there indicating that we will continue exploring options and working with other agencies that, you know, that may be better staffed in the future to, you know, promote the safety of our community in that sense.
Yeah. Okay.
I agree that there should be something in here about
Right.
that. Where we have the manpower now, but we may have it later on.
Yeah, all those comments were right on.
Yeah.
That's the reality we face.
So you want us to just throw something in there to that
Yeah.
effect?
Yeah, we've got our managing engineer raising his hand.
Pardon me?
Managing.
Travis's guys.
Hi, Travis.
Hello again. I just wanted to offer this for the commission's consideration, and that is that, and I think I'm fairly confident Tim would agree with this, that our biggest concern as a public works department right now about safety and security as it pertains to parks and trails is not on our trails. It's in Columbia Park primarily. That's where we have recurring problems. That's where we have a lot of concerns and really need more help. So I think the comments are well heard. I think I would broaden that maybe to and maybe the thinking that the only or that these security type issues are a trail issue. That's not what we've been our experience. You know, our experience has been that really some of the parks, and particularly Columbia Park, and a lot of that relates to the high school students particularly. That's where we have a lot of problems as it relates to safety and security and park users feeling secure, much more so than any trail that we have in our system.
Chair Stephenson?
Yes.
I would agree, but that might change as we do interconnect.
That's what I was thinking, as much we do the connection. Now we're bringing that.
Right. The riffraff, you mean?
Well, yeah. Is there a way to secure the extension that people cannot get cars and buses and things down into there? Like they're doing on Marine Drive?
I can tell you that we've used Ultra Blocks, and they still find a way to move those. So I don't know if there's an effective way to do it.
I don't really think so either. They find a way to get around them. I know they just moved, about maybe 2 weeks ago, moved one just off of the exit from 205 to 84. There was some that came right off the freeway and they were camped and put some, and there's tents starting to go back up. So it's an ongoing thing.
It's rough.
Yeah. It's our reality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll put something in there to that effect. Okay.
For parks and trails.
All right. Anything else? Commissioner Wilcox?
Yes, I have a short list, not too long, of statements I have questions about. If I could go to it.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. For reference, I'm going according to the page numbers on the printed version versus the online version. First up was page 21 under funding and partnerships. I think there might have been an allusion to this at the last meeting, but questions on 7.4, dedicate revenues from disposed properties to improve existing park system, develop parks in underserved areas. Maybe David could answer this one, or Travis. What I'm thinking is, if in the case of the city selling City Hall, for example, would the proceeds from that sale be used for park property acquisition?
Yeah. And Commissioner Wilcox, I brought this up before because that's kind of how I read it, that it'd be any property that the city disposed of.
Yeah, we made a clarification.
And we were going to put in there dedicated revenues from disposed parks properties.
I think John's caught that as
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's correct. That's what I recall. I have in my notes here is exactly what you just said. Sure.
Okay, perfect. So you're right on, Paul.
Okay. Let me find my next one here real quick.
That almost could be a grenade.
Okay, my next one I questioned was on page 25, the top right of the page. It says, the area northwest of Cherry Park and 257th Drive has significant density, but is almost completely outside of any park walkshed. If I'm reading my map correctly, that's the area directly to the north of Reynolds High School. So that'd be right across the street from Columbia Park. So I don't know how they can say that's underserved by a park.
Was it?
Is it that
Area
Cherry Park or the
northeast of Cherry Park and 257th.
But there's two Cherry Parks. There's the one that
There's
ties
south
into
and north.
Sturgis by the post office, and then there's one by the high school.
Right, there's Cherry Park South, which is what's by the high school, and Cherry Park North, which is up by the post office.
Well, they're saying northwest, so I take it it's the.
I think they were thinking
North.
They're
Cherry
talking
Park
about the one
North.
that goes past the high school.
Mr. Holton.
I can offer an easy solution here, I think. Simply substitute the term or the name Cherry Ridge for Cherry Park. Cherry Park is a bifurcated roadway, as was just mentioned, and that can be kind of confusing. Cherry Ridge is the name of a subdivision, and the area that's in question is specifically north and northwest of the Cherry Ridge subdivision.
So it would be the where Cherry Park becomes Sturgis, is what you're saying?
Yes.
So yeah, if you were to go west on Sturgis from 257th, continue through the bicycle and pedestrian path at the end of Sturgis, then you're in the Cherry Ridge subdivision, which sits atop the escarpment there above Edgefield.
Okay, that clarifies that.
I just
And
also want to clarify too, we're talking about like this one, there's no park, almost completely outside of any park watershed, but I think we're using the 1/4 mile, right? Distance finder for that. We're saying it needs to be within a 1/4 mile. I think we've been using 1/4, right?
Yeah, so that map shows two different distances, 1/4 and 1/2 mile. And so those observations on that particular page, so page 25, and what that map is showing is areas that's outside of the 1/2 mile park distance. So the greater distance that we were looking at, about a 10-minute walk to a park, those areas that are shown are outside of that 1/2 mile distance.
It looks like it's right by Edgefield's golf course.
That could double as a park.
okay, I've got that one covered. Then on the same page, I know this one was covered at the last meeting, but I'm not sure it was actually resolved. It talks about the residential areas north of I-84, and it was pointed out that because of the census tracts being used, there really isn't any Troutdale residential north of 84. So that might be needing a little wordsmithing there. Let's see what's next here. Page 32. And the bottom left of page 32, it says, according to the SCORP, priorities related to the Latino and Asian populations in urban parts of Oregon include more restrooms, children's playgrounds, play areas, et cetera, et cetera. Those seems like things that pretty much any population would want. And then if you go backtrack to page 30, it actually pretty much says the same thing related to the general non-ethnic population. So it seems kind of a redundant duplication, saying that a certain population wants these things, and when everybody wants these things. Just got one or two more, I think.
That's a good point. Do we have to repeat that?
I don't know if we need to repeat it, but kind of the conversation that we had last time, I think I would lean on the side of describing needs as opposed to keeping it.
Yeah, this is John. I'm happy to clarify. It's the way I'm reading it, they're pretty distinctive. So on page 30, I see a description of family-friendly opportunities, accessibility, affordability, equity. Then there are a few key needs specific to downtown, to what we heard from the needs analysis about supporting downtown. And then on page 32, it's more about like what you might see to make that happen, specifically based on survey results from the statewide comprehensive outdoor recreation plan. So in other words, there's some things really more related to downtown that we heard about. But then when we think about inclusivity in parks, I think that's the point of that observation on the SCORP data is there are some differences, based on different demographics that these surveys have found. So we wanted to make sure that's clear in here.
Right, yeah, the data looks pretty distinctly different. And if you notice, the key needs in there too are kind of targeted for those data points. So it would make sense that it's, separately in there for sure.
And
Yeah,
which
they're-
data chart are you referencing?
We're looking at the same pages. I mean, 30 and 32, just on the parks plan, how it talks about key needs and how there are specific, needs right there for multilingual signage, adding restrooms, interpretive sign that showcases diversity of people. I mean, like there are different data points between the two sets, and kind of circling back to the actual wording in the ordinance and whatnot. It kind of goes back to what we talked about before, as far as limiting inclusivity isn't really what we're trying to do. If anything, we're just trying to include more people. So I don't think the wording on it needs to change in this set either, personally.
Okay, just a couple more. On page 40, the Second Street Bridge was mentioned as the 257th crossing. I don't know if that was settled last time around or not. And then onward to page 41. I think I probably should have addressed this one when I was correcting the typos. But on page 41, going from the bottom left to the top right, it says the proposed minimum would bring the city closer to the lower quartile average of $60 per capita for comparable communities. And the bar graph right underneath that shows 68 for the lower quartile. It's a little hard to read, but it does say 68 versus 60. And I think that's all I've got. Thank you, Chair Stephenson.
Okay.
They both say 68.
I'm seeing, if I look at the bottom paragraph on the left-hand side,
So 68.
starting with figure 9, it says 68 there. Is that the one you're referring to?
Yeah, that bar graph.
And the bar graph said 68 too, where it says lower quartile.
Yeah.
They both say 68.
But the text says 60.
No,
No.
ours says 68.
Yeah.
Huh.
We have a different version. Ours says
Yeah.
68. Okay,
Okay.
all right, that works. That's 68 on both.
Oh, good. Okay. Somebody else caught that.
And that was all you had?
Yeah, thank you.
Terrific. Anything else? Commissioner Andrews, did you have anything else?
No, that settles it for me.
Great. I don't think I have anything else. And you guys are talking about the bridge, is that right? Okay.
The Second Street or Beaver Creek?
I think we figured Beaver Creek out. Second Street's kind of a wild animal. Okay, you guys taking that? Okay, all right.
I move we close the public hearing.
Okay,
I'll second it.
all right. And just before we do that, did you guys have any other comments for us? Okay, Mr. Hutchinson, did you have any? Before we close the hearing?
Oh, thanks, Tanny. No, I'm sorry I was a little bit late. I'll get updated by the other PAC members. Thank you.
Okay. No, you only get one demerit for being tardy, so you're still good.
Okay, thanks.
All right. So with that, close the public hearing. A motion and a second. All in
Right.
favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? All right, public hearing is closed. Okay, we are good.
That was unanimous, right?
Yes.
So I would like to kick it back to the Parks Advisory Committee. They wanted it back, so I
Okay.
recommend we do that.
So we would be sending this back,
With revisions,
With red lines.
with red lines.
right.
Right.
We would be sending back our recommended edits back to the Parks Committee.
Chair Stephenson, I
Yes.
would fully agree because really it's their wheelhouse.
Yeah,
And I
absolutely.
didn't see anything in here that really affected our future development plans.
No.
I didn't either. So do you want me to make
If
a
we didn't
motion?
say something,
Oh,
people think we were
should,
stupid.
Do you want us to make a motion?
Please.
I move that we refer the Parks Master Plan back to the Parks Advisory Committee
second.
Yes, edited.
as edited and redlined.
Agreed.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion and a second to refer the City of Troutdale Parks Master Plan back to the Parks Advisory Committee as edited. Any discussion on the motion? Okay. Take it away, Ms. Washington.
Roll call.
Okay. Thank you. Okay.
Just gotta find who's here.
What's that?
Just gotta find who's here.
What's that?
You gotta find who's here.
Commissioner Rooney,
Yes.
Vice Chair Prickett,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilcox,
Yes.
Commissioner
Yes.
Chair Stephenson,
Yes.
Commissioner Andrews.
Yes.
Okay, that passes. Excellent. Thank you.
Hutchinson.
What's that?
Is Hutchinson on the committee?
Yeah.
Just didn't call him. Did you
No,
call
not
Hutchinson?
on ours. He's on Parks.
Oh, he's on.
So he takes roll there. He's busy.
Is that it?
That's it.
You want
So
us-
do we need to move to close?
No? What? Close what?
Yes.
No, it's
We
already
did.
closed.
Right.
We already closed the public hearing, so it's. closed.
Right, no. Do we have anything else we're handling?
Tonight?
Close the
No.
meeting? Yeah.
Oh, we're talking. No, you don't get to adjourn yet.
Okay.
Not yet.
That's what I was asking.
We have other business.
Okay, that's.
Chair, can we let our esteemed consultants call it tonight?
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
Okay. Thanks, John.
Thank you, Sean.
Thanks all.
Thank you, Travis, if you're still there.
Yeah.
You just went home after.
Thank you.
Thanks, Travis.
You're very welcome.
And thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Victoria, Tim, and Shelley Reynolds. Thank you. Okay.
So the red line revised version coming off of the planning commission, how will we, I get a copy of that, or?
Yeah, so we'll, John, consultant and ID, John Venus, and Chris Ann will somehow package that, get it out to you guys. What I don't know is, yeah, that'll work. I'm not, timeline, we'll get it to you a week in advance, which I think is fine. So we'll shoot to get it to you on the 11th. So,
Please tell your team thank you.
Thank you for the process.
Okay, next up. Couple things that we have going. Do you want to do updates first?
sure, I think we're coming back to, coming back to April 11th. We're planning to come back to you for, sure.
Okay. What?
We're coming back to planning commission, and I cannot remember the name of the project.
Home Forward? No, Lisa?
You were hoping.
Oh, I know which one it is. It's Sweetbriar.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Okay.
that's
Oh,
what we
yes.
have on the agenda for April 11th.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. And okay, so a couple items of newsworthy is, you know, that our case for Khalifa was appealed to the city council. And the city council upheld our decision 6-0. So that was kind of cool. I will tell you, that's the first one I've been through, and it was kind of quite an experience.
Well, I actually watched it.
Did you?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to have been sitting in that hot seat at all, either way.
I stayed long enough to hear what the, what you call them, plaintiffs?
Applicant?
The applicant,
Yeah.
That the applicant had to say. And I left after that, so I didn't catch.
Well, it was
city
interesting
council's
because
reaction.
the applicant went, and then I went, and then there was public testimony, and then you'd rebut the public testimony, and then the applicant would go and you rebut them, and then they'd rebut you, and it just kind of goes back and forth for a while, and eventually it comes to a deliberation. Thought it was a good process. It was a little like a root canal.
Well, I would actually say it was worse than a root
Oh, it was worse than a root canal, yes.
canal. It made my teeth hurt just thinking about it.
But it was good to have that decision upheld. And then the other thing that the council did was they passed a moratorium on marijuana facilities. And so that was passed as an emergency piece of legislation. And so those will be, no new licenses will be issued. And the decision will be put on the ballot. So that'll go out next fall in that election. And so one of the things that was brought up at the council meeting was the part of the code that was inadvertently left off and things like that. And the council was a little pointed in, you know, what have you guys done about it? I'm like, well, we're working on it. And they're like, probably should have had that done by now. And so they are pushing to get that done. And so we will get that done. And that's something we have to give 35 days notice to do any of that anyhow.
Wait, I'm sorry, Tanya, I'm seeing something from your screen. Can you say that again, please?
Oh, I was saying that we have to rework some of that code.
Yes.
And I don't think we can do that on the 11th. We could probably workshop it, but we can't notice a hearing.
Yes, no, we wouldn't be prepared anyway.
Right.
So
Okay.
I did chat with you about that.
Okay.
Always.
Take that one later.
So was it not already, I thought it was just a publication error.
It is, but it does need to be reworked.
I see, okay.
Read the entire code just to make sure that it was.
We're not missing something.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right.
It's kind of like when you go jump off a cliff and do these, you want to like have everything with you when you go, so you don't have to do it so often.
Yeah.
So that will be coming fast and furious, so we'll get that done. And the other thing that happened was the TCAB committee met with potential developers for the Confluence site. And they met with the Urban Renewal Agency Tuesday night and voted to move one of the proposals forward and start negotiations with Capstone Partners, who is the preferred development of the three. And I'll just say, personally, this is like really exciting stuff. We've waited, you know, many, many years for this, and to see it come, it's not done yet, but to see it this close, this is closer than it's ever been.
Did you see what they're talking about?
For development?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's pretty nice, huh?
Yeah.
Right.
Really nice. And I think what is really got me the most is they really looked at the town center plan and the meetings and what the community said they wanted, and they just kind of went for that. and really tried to energize that waterfront and the open space and the park and those things. And I just felt that it was a really deep effort by them to listen to what Troutdale wanted, not come in, oh, we developed these all over the place and we're gonna do this here. You know, it didn't feel like that at all. It kind of felt like, well, we listened to you and this is what we think you want. And we're like, well, it's kind of spot on, you know?
Yeah, it was obvious that they were in tune, which I found impressive.
Yeah. And I mean, to take that a step further, the TCAP team met and discussed some things that they didn't really think were that great with the original proposal. And when they presented the second time, those things were changed.
Yeah.
And I've said this before, I think the city's very fortunate to have 3 applicants that submitted. My opinion, my experience, they're all very good. I think the team that was ultimately put forward by TCAP was the team that was a team that really had the best effort. So it was pretty unanimous, at least in this phase. What we talked about a lot is that it's just that it's a very early stage in this process. There's still a lot of work to happen. Things will evolve in design and the financing and how the deal is structured as we get together. We entered into the exclusive negotiation agreement. So it's just that the very first phase is really about, you know, does this feel like a good fit? And then we'll go into the second phase of that, where we'll really begin to define, you know, who, what, when, and how. Assuming that goes well, then you enter into a more formal agreement where both sides, the city and the development teams, show their obligation, are obligated to do certain things to move the project forward. There's quite it was a lot of fun. It's very exciting. It's fun to be part of it. There's a lot more to go.
Well, that was a pretty good hit off the bat, though.
Yeah. So we did have really very good proposals.
But you can come up with so many reasons why this can't work, won't work, doesn't work. And, you know, the city's gone to the effort and expense of cleaning it up and getting it ready and having the right people in place and the right vision. And I think we're just seeing it, you know, we've waited a long time, but we're seeing it all kind of come together.
As David likes to say, we're getting ready for the first date.
But I think we're dating, right? Aren't we dating now?
We're dating.
Yeah, we're dating.
You're developing history.
Pardon me?
You're developing history. On that property.
Yeah, I think it's going to be great, and I think it's going to be something Troutdale can be proud of.
It was the first pass and we didn't pull away.
What's that?
Oh, we were talking about dating. Said it was the first pass and we didn't pull away.
Yeah.
It's a good sign.
Yeah, it's just a great thing.
I think a city council member referred to it as The Bachelor, if I'm not mistaken, or Urban Renewal Agency. Yeah, remember?
Was that the mayor? I think it was. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was Randy.
Yeah, that was funny. But it's just
That really took it down.
Yeah.
It's a great opportunity. Okay.
Commissioner Lee and staff has been
Yeah.
the project that we have. So, thank you.
I just think that the way this whole process had been handled has been outstanding on everybody's part. The developers, staff, you know, TCAP, I think everybody's just done a great job representing the city and its interests. I think our citizens would be proud of the effort that we put forth. Do you have anything else?
That's it.
Okay.
I want to say the new sign for the food cart, I had a vision that was going to be bigger than that, but you can't, compared to the building, it fits right where it's at. It's the little truck.
I know
Oh,
what
yeah.
it is.
It looks fine where it's at. It doesn't, you don't see it like when you come off the freeway. You have to almost go around the corner, and you can just barely see it when you go around the corner, and then it's there. So I think it's less intrusive that way.
You can actually see it from the freeway. But
I
I agree
can-
with you, it doesn't overpower anything.
Right, it's right
In my
close,
opinion.
right, it's not sitting out there in the middle of nowhere, you know, like the IKEA sign.
We ate there last Friday and it was nice.
That one,
You can
don't-
almost see that one space, the IKEA sign.
I think I can almost see it from Mount Hood, so it's that big.
Is that it?
Yep, that's it.
Commissioner Andrews. Anything? No? Okay. Commissioner Wilcox,
Nothing.
Commissioner Allen,
Just one note, and I think we all know it. The wording was a little strange within our master plan documentation, because we talk about ethnicities, which you would expect there to be some cultural ethnicity differences, right? But then the awkward part is it mentions things that everybody would agree with, you know, as if one ethnicity pays more than another. So it just seemed a little strange to me, but at least
the
I'm.
restroom thing. Yeah, I'm
Well, I
taken back by
mean,
that
all of
too.
them were things that everybody could agree with. Although I think it is very important that we're in tune with where there may be cultural differences. It just happened to be the way it flowed, just seemed awkward to me. Like we should be trying, but we might have tried too hard, I don't know.
All right. It is.
Awkward.
Commissioner Lee. Counselor Glanz,
Yes, sir.
how are you?
Good.
I'm just seeing if you have anything.
Oh, no. Nope, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do and just listening, not commenting.
Good girl, you won't get in trouble.
That's right.
All right, with that.
I move, we close the public hearing.
No.
Adjourn, sorry. Adjourn.
I second.
Okay, we have motion a second to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, thank you all for all your work on the parks plan and having to go to meetings. Appreciate your patience this evening with the technical difficulties, and we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Night.
I'm still got them before 9 with all the technical difficulties. We would have got that by 8:30.